Everyone, welcome to the latest Liquidware Chats. I talk today to Roberto Medina, who's a senior solutions architect at CDW. We talk about how Roberto got into end user computing. We also look at his current role at CDW and what is the most enjoyable part of his role. We also talk about the major pain points that he sees with customers and how Liquidware solutions are helping with those problems. And then finally, we close with a look at the impact of AI on EUC. Enjoy the episode. Thanks. Roberto, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, James. Happy to be here.
Excellent. So, Roberto, just before we kind of delve into the topics, I just wanted to, could you give us a bit about your background and how you ended up kind of in EUC?
Happenstance, I want to say. I've been with CDW for quite a long time. I want to say it's going to go on 27 years this coming April. Started off in different areas within the company, specifically configuring computers, servers, and so forth. Worked my way through the tech support. And then I think what really changed for me and where I really started to delve into EUC was when I started to take on a thin client pre-sales role. So I started to cover, different vendors in that space like iGel or at the time VXL and before HP acquired them, NeoWare and Bossa Nova and stuff like that. And so that was really the front end of it, just trying to understand the differences between, regular desktop computing and thin client computing. And their thin client computing obviously led to what I'm doing today, which is more revolved around kind of talking through those solutions in the user workspace. So just kind of fell into it in a way. One interest led to the other, and then just kind of evolved from there. So yeah, been an interesting
And when
ride,
you
to
were
say the
looking
least.
at thin clients, obviously, thin clients connect to something. So, was it like Citrix or VMware at the time, or what were you connecting to?
We're talking many moons ago. So yeah, I would say definitely. I want to say Citrix was probably the predominant player, of course. Following through that,
So,
eventually
we'd be
Hue came
talking
into
MetaFrame or presentation server.
Metaframe more than anything
Okay.
else. Yeah, yeah. And then from there, obviously VMware came into the picture, right, with server virtualization, and then came out
Mm-hmm.
with their product called View.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, it was originally called VDI, interestingly enough. So from there, it eventually evolved to what it becomes now, which is Horizon. But yeah, that's overall how kind of fell into it. That and terminal services too. So that also falls into play.
Yeah,
So
yeah, of course. So just to kind of go on and maybe give us a bit more details about what your role what you do essentially at CDW, and also kind of as a follow-up question, what is the kind of the most enjoyable part of your role?
oh, that's a good question. I would say first and foremost to describe my role, we're really just kind of helping customers navigate through the user workspace. So if you really think about the one question that I typically ask is, when a user accesses the application, um, and the resources that it generates from that application or application set, what is that experience like? Good, bad, where are you at in that place? And
Mm.
what tools are you currently utilizing? Are you using a combination of perhaps like UEM or and a combination with that with VDI? What are your security standards and stuff like that? So my objective is really to understand that first and then understand where you want to get to and why you can't get there today. That's really kind of what it is in a nutshell. And I can't remember what your follow-up question. What was your follow-up question again?
Oh, it was around what's your favorite part of your job?
Talking to customers by far.
Yeah.
I think this job allows me to venture off into different avenues, whether it's more enterprise type of customers, small to medium business. Well, our enterprise customers are referred to our majors accounts, right? Hospitals. And it's also, this may sound a little quirky, but sometimes when I'm passing by a specific building or company, I'm like, oh, I helped kind of build that. That's
Yeah,
I know that company. Yeah.
yeah, I can relate to that because I did a similar role for as yourself back several years ago, and I did it for one of our big banks, and if I went into that bank, I knew that like the ATM and the teller machines at the cash desk, that I had configured that, I had built that configuration and then deployed it across whatever the branch network was. So I kind of was like, little tap on the shoulder for
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, you know where
Yeah,
I'm coming from.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. You have to kind of, you go, I did make an impact. I did this for that particular customer. So, yeah, no, I completely understand that looking at a building and go, yeah, yeah.
And not only just buildings, right? Like I have a real soft spot for schools,
Mm,
specifically being able to enhance, whatever way, which way they're accessing through education, like specific applications like AutoCAD or Premiere or the
mm,
Creative Suite, things like that, helping enhance that experience. I remember one in particular case when we were talking to a school, and we had one of the students kind of give us feedback as to what the experience was like on a particular VDI build, right? And so
mm-hmm,
a lot of us were partnered together, including the vendor, for the hardware vendor, and we were piloting it out for GPU performance. And asking the student questions, we were kind of overwhelming them to a degree, just like what is the experience like at this minute, and what is it doing here, and why are you
mm,
experiencing this? And I said, okay, hold on, back up a second. Let's just try to figure this out, right? Because they were going into one particular desktop that wasn't performing as well as the other. And so when I was asking him a series of questions, just layman terms question, I'm like, hey, I can't remember the student's name, but I said, hey, when you're accessing, this particular desktop, are you accessing it from home? And they're like, yeah. I said, okay. Are your parents home, or do you have siblings and so forth? And he'd be like, yeah. I go, are they watching anything like Netflix or playing video games? And like, yeah. So then we determined obviously it was latency, right? And
mm,
there was obviously when you're doing a shared upon a shared connection, that's going to affect performance of the expert desktop. So
yeah.
I asked him, can you do me a favor? The next time when you're making this comparison, can you go to maybe like a Starbucks, or maybe to your in school, and see if there's a difference in that same desktop? And sure enough, the performance improved, right? For obvious reasons,
Yeah,
obvious
of
to us, I
course.
should
No,
say.
yeah,
So,
yeah, no, it makes sense, and I suppose that has become a bigger thing given how we a lot of us now work remotely. Is that your the the home network has become an extension of the corporate or work network, and
yep.
it opens up a whole box of other things we have to try and troubleshoot now. So
Yeah, it totally does. It totally does. But to that, when you were originally asking the second part of your question, it's just it's an interesting place to find yourself in these scenarios, and then be able to come up with resolutions to how they can better their environment. And that's a really cool component of my job. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
No, I really like that. Yeah, it's when you feel you've actually made a difference to someone, and
yep,
that's a big thing for me. When I did this kind of stuff back in the day as well. Like you go, oh yeah, I made that person's life easier. Now yeah. And then but look, on the other
yes,
hand, then you get all uh the bad side of it. This is awful, this is not working. But if you can actually get that from that to, oh yeah, this is pretty good, you know, you're not
yep.
always going to get this is excellent, because there's always people, people like to complain. So there's always something. It's like you're never going to get, oh yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
We also have a different tolerance too.
Yeah.
Speaking like you and I, like just being able to resolve simple issues, like even being able to connect, your microphone's not working or the video's not connecting. We know what to do, what steps to take to actually troubleshoot
Mm.
that issue. Where some of the users may not have that. A perfect example is my mother, right? Like if I if I were to, my mother calls me and says my computer's broken, I have to kind of troubleshoot that issue and figure out what it is. So
Yeah, yeah, I'm half expecting my phone to ring with my dad now, asking me to do something. So it
yeah,
happens. It happens pretty regularly. But look, he is in his 80s, so fair play that he's still using a computer is what I in some ways. But or sometimes what he'll do is like I go, I don't actually know how you did that. He
yeah,
did
I've run into that
something,
too.
and I'm like, I'm racking my brain and I don't actually know how you actually managed to do that. And then he's
Yeah.
like, oh, you just press this and yeah, it just happened. And I'm like, no, it didn't just happen. So,
Right. Yeah, and then you got to kind of go back to it and see what did they actually kind of unravel the mess, right? And
exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's like if you're in like a server room, you've got a mass of cables, you have to unravel them all. Like so, yeah.
exactly right. Yeah, exactly. I'm the dedicated lifetime tech support for all of my family.
Yeah.
So
I am as well.
Are you?
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be. It doesn't even have to be computers. I've done like my parents' soundbar doesn't stops working on their TV. It's me they call to fix it. Not my younger brother. It's me they call. So
There's
they say it's
circumstances that way.
payment for all the years they spent and all the money they spent on me when I was in college and stuff like that. So
I,
small price to
I
pay.
I do have a question for you, James. Um, does your family know what you do? Can they describe what you do?
That's a good question. Now, no, my family would mainly just think I work in IT. They don't
Mm,
really, and I've had so. In fairness, I've had so many different roles like yourself. I started on help desk and then I moved into consultancy. I've been a solutions architect. I've been a sales engineer. I'm now a product marketer and podcaster. So, it changes quite frequently. So they just go, he works
that's
in
fair.
IT.
Yeah, same here. The reason why I asked that for the exact same reasons is that I don't think really my family knows what I do. I try to tell them in so many different ways, but some of it they'll pay attention to, some of it they won't. It's family. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. Like my kids see I'm on YouTube, so they're like, "Oh, you have a YouTube channel," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's part of my job for work." And then my daughter goes, "But you said I couldn't be a YouTuber," and I'm like, "Oh God, yeah, okay, yeah." Dad does it as part of his job. It's not the
Right,
complete job. I
right.
don't want you to be one of those influencers type things, on YouTube. So yeah, there is a little bit of yeah, you have a YouTube channel, and actually, one of my episodes, I was recording, and I think my son walked in, and he said to me the other day, "I'm on your podcast," and I'm like, "What? Are you talking about?" And I was racking my brain, and I'm like, I don't remember him walking in on me, and then I was thinking. I have someone who edits these out, so it was probably edited out, but he thinks
Sure.
he's on a podcast episode somewhere. So
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, you could be a star
I've
too,
locked
right,
the door
James?
today to stop him coming in because my office is in my back garden. So the kids come out and they're on spring break at the moment, so they're hanging around. So, but I've locked it to
Okay.
keep it out. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, but it is an interesting thing about, as you said, about family and what they think we do and that. And yeah, I think I've tried to explain it a couple of times and with the different roles, and can't remember if I've explained the role I'm in now recently to my parents. I probably it's been a while since I've explained what I actually do. So
Mm.
you know,
But I will say this though, it does help me with customers in
mm,
a lot of different ways. Because if I'm able to explain it to like my 16-year-old niece,
mm,
um, or if I'm able to explain it to my mom or my aunts and so forth, then I can also kind of find that Rosetta Stone with customers as well, for that they don't understand some of these technologies. Because there's a lot of, I don't want to say jargon, but for lack of a better term, we'll just stick with that.
yeah,
There's just a lot of terms and terminology, and sometimes you need a glossary of terms to actually determine what it is that the solution provides, right? There's all these different names for all these different technologies. And so being able to kind of break that down, the example that I've always used is always kind of like I was able to explain defragmentation to my mother because she kept getting this error about defragmentation. I said, well, you like shoes, right, Ma? She's like, yeah. I go, try to imagine a closet full of shoe boxes, and I would have put one pair of shoes or take out one shoe and put it into another box. How long would it take you to find your pair of shoes? She's like, a long time. I go, what happens if I organize them and you have a bunch of empty boxes and you have all of the shoes properly in place? How long would it take you then? She's like, faster. I go, defragmentation. That's really what it is, right? Because it
yeah,
randomly fragmented data across the spindle. Now we're talking about hard drives back in the day, but that's a
yeah. No,
primary
no, no.
example.
I get you, and I think that's a real skill to people. We can get bogged down in the jargon and the acronyms and everything like that. But if you can explain it as to the level of like a 6-year-old or something, then it helps with when you're describing things to customers because you know over the years, end user computing, things have just got more complex and more complex. Like
Absolutely.
I was talking to Jerry and Gibson a while ago, and we were talking about if you were going to be like a consultant now rather than back in the day. And I'm like, the level of complexity and vendors and that you have to keep up with is it's just growing. Now there has been some consolidation, but like back in the day, it was like Citrix, VMware, and maybe one or two others.
Yep.
It was limited. Now it's like all of the supporting cast. So yeah, I think it's always a good skill to kind of be able to break things down into its most simplest form. I suppose that's
Especially now. Yeah,
yeah.
especially now, specifically because of the hypervisors and the things and the hyperscalers, obviously. That's the biggest kind of when we
Mm,
started to see a lot more vendors come into this space, because it becomes less, more about the VM itself at the application level, than
mm,
it does at, also the hardware that you have to lie underneath it in specific resource pools. So it's definitely more complex now. I remember the days of when it was a kind of a combination of having one particular solution for a customer, like where we would talk about server virtualization, right? And then,
mm,
being able to utilize that to consolidate their existing cluster, right? And saying you can utilize, you're only utilizing only 20% of it. Here's the data to show you that if we can actually consolidate your existing environment. And that was a win-win situation for everyone. And
yeah.
an extension of that was EUC, an
Mm,
extension of it. Like here's an application that allows your users to work remotely, and now look at the evolution of it all. Like
yeah.
EUC is taken on its own space, right? It's expanded to all these different technologies such as application virtualization, profile management. You're adding different layers, and so having to architect that and navigate that space has become. I have a full time job for a reason. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. I can well imagine, and yeah, you have a lot to handle these days when you're, uh, and I suppose the really the key thing is that yes, you've got all this complexity, but the end users can't see it. It all has to be hidden and be seamless for the end user. You're like in the Wizard of Oz. You have to be
I
behind the
was just
curtain.
thinking that. Yeah, no, you're not allowed to see what's
Yeah,
behind the curtain.
you can't
Absolutely,
see any of that complexity,
no.
but us as the implementers and the architects of this stuff, it, you have so many headaches to deal with, from as simple as is it on-prem, is it cloud, and
Yep,
then all of the
yep,
other questions. And that
yep.
kind of brings me to kind of the next question I wanted to ask you. You've said obviously a key part of your role is you're working with customers every day. So given what are some of the kind of the major pain points you see for customers at the moment, like be it migrations to Windows 11, or what are you seeing at the moment?
Definitely Windows 11 is coming up more and more. Also, customers are trying to decide, what the evolution of their environment is. Trying to navigate to what that roadmap is going to look like. How do you develop that roadmap? Like for instance, we kind of we help customers go through what we refer to as a user experience strategy. And the intent of that is really just to get them to where first a base understanding of what is the objective? Like, what are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to provide your users? What type of users do you have in place? And then understanding that kind of leads us to the next steps, like how do we get there, right? So maybe asking them a series of questions, conducting workshops, and so forth. And then from there, it will take us on to utilizing some of your tools, like your DEX tools, such as Stratosphere,
Mm-hmm.
to pull data and to understand all of these different data points to actually kind of compare and contrast and understand specifically what's happening within your environment. And then from there, we're able to kind of provide them with that roadmap. So it's a methodology, if you will, and I think maybe other companies follow the same suit in different ways and call it something different. But it helps us kind of navigate the customer through that space. And so um, I can't really kind of pinpoint it, but it's the way that I've usually described this and helping them navigate that space is kind of like going to the doctor, right?
Mm,
When you go to the doctor is typically going to ask you what's wrong and say, "Hey, James, I've noticed. Well, why are you here? Let me just start off with that." You'll say maybe it's a cough, So they'll ask you a series of questions and say, "Okay, well, how long have you had this cough? What were the symptoms early on before you had this cough? Did you try anything new?" And so on and so forth.
mm,
And then from there, they'll say, "Well, based on what you're telling me, I'm going to need some more information." So that information comes in the form of a blood test or maybe some other type of exam or something of the
sure.
sort, right? And then from those results, they come back and kind of consult you and kind of guide you through the way of saying, okay, well, this is your diagnosis and this is what I'm going to prescribe you. This is the following steps we're going to do to get rid of that cough of yours, right?
Mm.
We're just doing the exact same thing with computers.
Yeah, yeah.
We help them navigate that space in a way where it helps us understand specifically where they are and where they want to get to, and then we help them get there. And
Mm.
with all of these different technologies, whether it's VDI or whether it's UEM, like Intune or Workspace One and Citrix or Omnissa Horizon and so forth, and the ever-changing landscape of that as well,
Mhm.
um, it could feel like a moving target. And it's having the position of being able to be exposed to these technologies and talk to their SMEs. It helps us kind of consolidate that discussion for them, so that way we can talk to them through it and then help them kind of navigate that space and then help them get to where they want to be. And that's really important.
Mhm.
I think with all the things that are happening in the industry, information is really important. Um, which is why I think DEX is also becoming more and more part of the conversation, is
Yeah.
because customers need to see firsthand what's actually happening on these machines. And you can't always do that when you have thousands of users or even hundreds of users for that matter. So yeah, yeah. I don't know if that answers your
Yeah.
question
Yeah.
though.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
no, no, it does. And I think, you've brought up an interesting point there about DX, and just in case anyone, we're using an acronym, it means digital employee experience. We talk about end user computing, and I remember when I first started, like, we would provide a desktop. It was locked down. You got your set applications. If you had internet access, it was via a proxy with the tightest whitelist known to man ever, and you will get access to maybe like Google, and that's about it. And then even like
Right.
the Google searches will be blocked if you ask for any category of something that they didn't. So to go from that to what we're, the freedom we have now, and the whole kind of evolution of the user to, EUC actually contains the word user. Some people, mightn't appreciate that, but it does.
Sure.
And
Sure. Yeah.
I think that's kind of where we've seen this whole evolution with Dex and things like, I don't know if you're aware, but like Stratosphere now has user sentiment surveys built in. So you can get that direct feedback from the customer, as well as seeing that kind of breadth of metrics of every description. So you're not just gaining insight about the machine; you're getting the user to kind of give you their feedback as well. And I think that's where we are now, and that's where Dex is evolving, as we're getting input from the user. It's not just about how the physical machine is running, etc., and the
Yeah, well,
applications.
it provides intelligence to
Mm.
what the user is trying to express. Like
Yeah,
the examples that we were talking about earlier, for instance, right? We were talking about our families and our siblings and so forth. They may not always have the voice to describe what's actually happening with their machine, and these DEX tools provide that information, right? They provide it in a way that actually says to the administrator, this is exactly what's happening with the machine and at these times, right? So
yeah,
those incremental changes or those intermittent problems that they're having, we can discover that. Having that information is invaluable because it also creates a culture shift sometimes. Like I did this panel discussion for Digital Workspace some years back. As being one of the panelists, I've noticed one thing that truly was successful in most companies was that it's a culture shift. When you involve your users, because they're the ones that are accessing your systems, and you make that compromise to help them, access these applications faster, quicker, being able to get, build in efficiencies that they need to do their day to day. And you're also giving them voice to have an opinion about what's actually happening with their machine or what they're doing or what they're logging into. It's a very important thing because now you have cheerleaders on your side. You have people that are advocating for the technology because they're involved with it as well. So it's a very interesting time, but I also find that that's also a very important point is a culture shift as well.
I agree. Yeah, I agree 100% with what you're saying, because I have heard of cases where people are like, we don't want those type of tools. We don't want to hear from our end users. If you think back to the way IT departments were run in the past, like, we were the department of no. It was like,
Yep.
no, no, you can't have that. No, you can't have access to that. But because of the way the complete shift we've had in what an end user is and what an end user demands. You can't have that mindset anymore, and they have to be part of it. You can't, it's getting to the stage now with Dex where it's part of when they give out the kind of the company summary for the year, like they've taken in where is our end user, because that comes into things like recruitment. If people
Yep.
aren't happy with what they're getting, they'll go somewhere else because this company doesn't give me, for example, a MacBook. They give me this old Windows machine and it's locked down and I can't do it. So
Or Chromebook.
yeah,
Yeah.
Chromebook. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
heavens for
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Well, it changes, right? It
It does
changes
change.
user.
It does change, and also it's getting to the stage where also more and more stuff is being done in the browser as well. So that's a shift
Hmm.
as well. So there are all these different factors. So as we said earlier, how important has your home network become, and it being a reliable source? Because if you're using any kind of device to access a cloud or hosted resource, if you don't have a decent internet connection, you're going to have a bad user experience. And
Yep.
I've seen this back in the day. Oh, Citrix is so slow. Turns out, they've got like a pathetic connection at home, satellite or, something really bad or that kind of thing. And then it's like when you kind of, as you said with that end user, you said, go to a coffee shop and test it and see is the experience better. Like
Hmm.
you do need that feedback and it helps you kind of enhance the experience. And as you said, you then get kind of you know cheerleaders for that technology and go, oh, this is really good, yeah, no, it's great, and then
Yep.
that spreads and changes the culture as well internally. So yeah, I think Dex tools are becoming more and more important, and then obviously and there's a wider array of them, including our own Stratosphere. So
Yeah, even as you're going to Windows 11, right, it helps you discover what the incompatibilities will be with that operating system. And there's so many different tools out there to do this. But
mm,
the most important part about it is information. It really just comes down to information. The more information that you have, the better your decision will be. And we've seen that more and through with more and more customers. It took when we asked them specifically, what is your application sets? They may be able to give us a good lump sum of what they actually have in the place, but sometimes there are things in the running in the background that are incompatible with one another or
oh
causing
yeah,
conflict.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I've seen in some of the reports, that we've taken all the information of all the applications from Stratosphere and we've output them to Power BI, and you see there's like 400 or 500 applications, and you would show that to a customer to go, what? We
yep,
have how many applications?
yeah,
And we're running
yeah,
200 versions of Visio. What?
yep,
Like
yep,
it could be a
yep,
major eye opener because a lot of this stuff is just you'd be surprised how many companies don't inventory this stuff. Like and when they have a solution like Stratosphere, they it opens their eyes and gives them so much data, and I think it overwhelms them, and that's kind of why we do have the ability to output to Power BI and that kind of thing, is because you can kind of hone in on what you're looking at and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's a huge thing, and as you said, Windows 11, you can get those insights into, well, will this machine run Windows 11 for a start? Because I have an old what is it, old Dell XPS,
hmm
and due
hmm
to its chipset it won't run Windows 11. Now I've got it to run Windows 11, but
yeah,
I'm not going to be do that hack across 20,000 corporate desktops
yeah,
because that's
yeah,
not going to fly with Microsoft. But
right, right,
on an individual basis, I can get to Windows 11, but companies have to think about this in more detail and kind of determine what you do with those devices. Do you buy a whole load of new devices, or do you suddenly switch to a cloud-based solution for your desktops or browser? It opens up. I think that's the thing about Windows 11. Oh, it's just an upgrade of hardware. No, it's not. It can determine your entire strategy for the next 5 years.
absolutely. Yep,
And
yep.
I think that's, and I think sometimes, and I'm sure you'll see it with some companies, they get complete paralysis and they just go, oh, we're just going to pay extended support because
Yep.
don't want to deal with this. This is
Paralysis by analysis. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
I think particularly as a software vendor, um, the one thing you're always fighting against is do nothing. Why implement change? Oh, we've done
Yep.
it this way. It's fine. And you have to be able to show that value of the solution, or making solving a particular pain point. And that's one of the things, I suppose that's one of the key things in my role, is that I kind of show through our content and our social media and all that kind of stuff that here's the pain points we resolve. And it's not about here's the 100 features that we have. It's about here's what I can do for you. And that's kind of how you engage with people.
Yeah, the other part of it is like, as customers are starting to consider moving on into the cloud, like you brought up cloud, right? That's a really interesting point because we're talking about consumption at this point. You're on a perpetual model with paying for these clusters, right? You
Hmm.
can basically size out whatever environment you have as long as it fits onto that cluster.
Yep.
But when you're considering cloud, well, cloud becomes more expensive because essentially it's an electricity bill, right? So when you migrate and shift out there, are you going to turn on a fridge or are you going to turn on a lamp? Which one is going to charge you more?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
to get to that understanding, right, you have to understand user consumption. You have to understand specific numbers. Are they utilizing 100% of this Intel Core i whatever
Mm.
laptop that has 32 gigs of RAM? Are they actually utilizing all of the resources on a daily basis? Because you're not going to give that same type of P to V or do that P to V out into the cloud because that's going to cost you so much.
Oh
So at
yeah.
certain, you have to be able to evaluate and have that information. That's why information is such a key component because it gives you all of that data to help you understand how to actually properly size this and take advantage of whatever the hyperscaler is able to provide. Bringing the
Exactly.
this
That's why, I dread when I hear the words lift and shift, because that's just the biggest mistake possible you could do. Like, you're going
it's
to cost
tough,
yourself so much money doing that kind of
so
thing.
tough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
we'll
the
just take
dependent.
what we have on prem, we'll just stick it in the cloud. And I'm like,
Sure, why not? Yeah, let's see
okay,
how that works.
sure. I
Well,
hope you have a lot of money.
no, but that's exactly right. And, and also leads into other things like data locality, when we have to deal with how the application is accessing that backend information, because you're essentially causing a hairpinning effect. So these are constant conversations that we're having with customers, to help them kind of help navigate that space. And if you have the initiative to go onto the cloud, what does your data center strategy look like? How
Mm.
are you compensating for all of those backend systems are you going to replicate that into the cloud? Are you going to keep it on premise? And if so, what type of connection do you have? What type of site-to-site VPN do you have? Do you have an SD-WAN solution in place? All of these conversations kind of trickle through based on what your initiative is and then where you're trying to get to, and then how you're going to get there, right? Because it's one thing to provision out like a VDI instance, whether it's AVD or something of the sort onto the cloud, but if that application within that session is trying to ping a backend system that's on premise, how are you going to get it there? What does that connection look like? I
Yeah.
always have, yeah.
Yeah, it's always a broader question than, okay, we're going to move to cloud or VDI. Okay, where is the most important mission critical application? Where is its, database or whatever
Yep.
located? Have
Yep.
you now increased the latency between those? If you have, you're going to have a problem. So,
But the other thing too is that companies are starting to also realize that they're trying to modernize their applications because that
mm,
is a very important aspect of it, right? Like when was the last time you saw an Exchange server? Those as companies and Microsoft starts to
oh,
shift and move,
jeez,
right?
give
We're
me you're
starting to
giving me bad flashbacks to when I used to have to configure Exchange servers.
Sorry about that. So, but if you really think about it, right, as they're becoming more modern, now the accessibility to those applications is different as well. Like now you're
Mm.
starting to look at other technologies like secure browsers and so forth, as opposed to doing full VDI solutions. Like to me, VDI has always been kind of the adapter to some legacy-based applications. It also provides other things too for administration, like single image management and so forth, or perhaps even security standards, where you can encapsulate the experience within that VM. But nonetheless, as it progresses, and more modern based like ERP applications or CRM applications are starting to modernize themselves, it also changes the mindset. And but the more modern the application, because let's face it, James, I mean everything starts at the application. And
Oh
so
yeah.
when it
No,
and
yeah, exactly. Like, we've gone through published desktops, published apps,
Yep.
and then it comes full circle. Well, okay, for published apps are now the trend, and we're moving away. Nobody needs a desktop anymore. We can be like have a phone like experience. I'm like, that doesn't work. One size doesn't fit all for across the board. So it's what fits that particular company, and of course the applications are critical, and we are seeing more SaaS applications. But at the same time, you know, I've seen numerous presentations, and I've kind of come to the conclusion, be cockroaches and Windows apps that'll be left after a nuclear apocalypse.
That's an interesting way of putting it. I like that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting time for sure. What are you gonna
Yeah,
say?
yeah, I think so. And obviously you have, if we look at our, look at applications, you have AppV. Now, Microsoft obviously have said that they are not innovating AppV anymore. They're getting rid of
Mm-hmm.
the server infrastructure, but you can keep your AppVs, or you can, look at migrating them across to a different format. And that it's something we're definitely seeing more and more of. People are like trying to figure out their strategy, and it's what's going forward, and why
Yeah.
we've got our integrations with AVD app attach, where you can bring your Flex apps into your AVD environment and that kind of thing. So, or you can utilize Flex app in an AVD environment. So, yeah, we are seeing kind of more modern management, and and different ways of managing and distributing applications.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I mean, like you mentioned, some of the technologies like Profile Unity or even like Flex App and so forth that that bring more agility to the environment. Like AppV was always seen for me as being able to consolidate golden images within a video environment. Like if you have interoperability between this application and maybe an older version of that application, there's always conflict in registry. So being able to
Yep.
kind of decouple that and manage that separately brought about lower instances of golden images where you don't have to have repeats of repeats of repeats.
Mm.
So it's an interesting way of looking at it. Sometimes for some customers, it makes it easier for them because they have so many images that they have to manage in general, whether it's BDI or not.
Mm.
In other instances, it could add a different layer of complexity because it's another layer to manage. So it
Yeah,
just
yeah, and yeah, I
there's
suppose
a
that's where.
balance.
Yeah, it depends on the customer and where they're at. And as you said, like you have something like Flex App, which is essentially an application layering solution, so you can remove those applications from the image and reduce down the images, which so it does, from an administrator standpoint, reduce some of that complexity around image management, because you see some companies, they have so many images, it's ridiculous. You're like, why have you that many images? Or this is crazy.
Sometimes they just create it just to create it.
I
But
know, yeah, and it's just like, oh, we did it for this one time. Well, why'd you keep it? Why don't you just get rid of it then?
mhm.
It's like anything. You talked about defragmentation earlier on. You should defrag your image management from time to time as well.
I
So,
mean, the good thing about my job is we're able to listen, and we don't listen to judge, right? We listen to help, and that's really the most important piece. Like we're going to look underneath the carpet, but it's really just to help you,
mm,
to help you kind of understand how we clean up this thing or how we can make it more efficient for you, how we can optimize it in a way that helps your ROI, whatever that objective is. It's really just to help you, and I think sometimes we run into situations where they'll try to clean things up before we go and take a look at it. Like, no, 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 leave things as is. We want to see specifically what's happening so that way we can develop a strategy for you, right? And help you along the way. Whether that comes in the form of a health check for your existing environment or that comes into a consultative engagement to kind of get you from A to B and so forth. Because even right now with AI, with all the things that are happening with AI, it's starting to shift how we're looking at information, how we're looking at processing, how we're looking at user interoperability. All of these things are starting to change at a rapid pace. I mean, to be completely honest with you, I've never seen a technology take off as quickly as the AI. And that's been in my almost 30 years being in these
mm,
industries. Just seeing the rapid pace of where it's actually taking place is astounding to say the least.
I agree. I'm always on I'm always on the edge today. I really like where AI is going and that, but I also feel that we're in a kind of a at the moment we're in a hype cycle, and it's very much,
Definitely see that. Yeah.
let's put AI in everything. And I've said several times, I don't need an AI powered toaster. Thank you very much. So 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 I think specific use cases, and you've brought up a brilliant one there, like data analysis. AI is
Mhm.
that it lives for that kind of thing. That is the
Yeah.
perfect use case. If you've got 200 spreadsheets and you need a summary of something, or that really works well. And I think that's the thing. There's kind of key use cases, and I know that's how we're looking at AI as a company. Is we're looking at, okay, what are these kind of key pain points that
Hmm.
we can help with, or AI can assist with within our solutions, and that's kind of where we're looking at. Like, and we haven't done widespread AI adoption yet because it is only kind of at the outset. So I
It's
I I
it's
think it's a good strategy, and there's some companies who I have seen implemented it well, and then there's others where I've seen it, and I'm like, yeah, I not really understanding what the benefit is there. So I think it's where it can bring benefit. But yes, I agree. The acceleration is I think it's the acceleration and the hype, and then the
yeah.
key thing when it comes to AI for me is, how does it benefit me? That's all you should be interested. Don't get overwhelmed by all of the information out there about AI, and how, if you just take one tool, you know, try playing around with it, and see how it can help you. I think that's kind of where we're at the moment. You can't be an AI expert. It's nearly impossible to be an AI expert. There's, I
Yeah.
think,
How?
yeah, exactly. There's so many
Yeah.
facets to it,
Yeah.
and but you can utilize it to benefit yourself. I suppose the one, there's a phrase that's going around and everyone uses it. It's like, AI won't replace you. Someone who utilizes AI will. So that's kind of where I am in my. I do
That's an
use it. I
interesting
use
take.
it on a daily basis, but I use it for the things I need it for. Will scan through LinkedIn and go, well, that's a load of nonsense. I don't need that. I-
Well, it definitely it built in efficiencies for sure.
Yeah,
It helps
yeah,
us. Yeah.
absolutely. Where it can help me, where it can make me
Yeah.
be more efficient. If I
Hmm.
needed to do some research, or look at something in a different way, or to brainstorm. Another one, good one I saw was, someone is like, when you're interacting with an AI, always think of it as you're talking with another person, and kind of get that kind of conversation going. Like,
Hmm.
one of the things that I don't know if you know, but with the latest version of ChatGPT is the memory functionality now will
Oh yeah.
go back the
Yeah.
entirety. So it kind of, you don't have to
Future
go and
history.
remind it,
Yeah.
I work here and this is my job. It knows it. So it kind of can be that you can almost have that conversation with it. So yeah, there's a really good book. What's it called again? Oh, hold on one second. It'll come back to me in a minute. But it's all about, introducing AI into everything you do.
Mm,
It's kind of saying, bring it along with you, and it will enhance what you do. Will it make mistakes? Will it lie
hmm.
to you? Absolutely. Yes. Check your work
Yeah,
always.
yeah, but like, I've been trying to get, my family on there, particularly my nieces and nephews, and I'll ask them kind of on a day, have you used AI today, right? And how have you used it? And most of the time, I'll tell them, I'm like, just replace Google search for AI.
Hmm.
And for my older cousins and my older siblings and family, I'll explain to them, like, well, try to think of it. Remember when you were 5 years old and you used to ask why the grass is green or why the sky is blue? Go back to that. Be that
Yeah.
inquisitive kid to constantly ask questions for a couple reasons. One important reason is so you recognize how AI responds. You can
Hmm.
adapt to it. You can understand how to better your prompts, because prompts are nothing more than just questions.
Yeah.
And so, in refining that and being able to utilize this, they'll actually see the value in it. And
Yeah.
it's
And
just it's
you can always
Mhm.
ask AI to refine your prompt. Like,
Yep.
it will
Yep.
do it. Um,
Yeah.
the book I was thinking of was Co-Intelligence by Ethan Mollick. Well worth
Okay.
well worth a read for anyone watching or listening. If you want a kind of a guide to how you can involve AI in everything you're doing. It's the guy is he's a professor at
Hmm.
Wharton, so he's not a techie. He's looking at this from all the various different aspects of it. So it's well worth a read.
Oh, definitely check that out. I
Yeah,
enjoy reading. So yeah, absolutely. That and of course podcasts like such as yourself, James. It's
very
great
good.
podcast. Very
Uh,
informative.
Excellent. Roberto, this has been really good. I've really enjoyed this.
Same.
So I want to thank you for your time. It's been really good. I think we've talked about kind of the key things, the key pain points, and how they kind of look at and determine a course of action for a company going forward. And data such as generated by a solution like Stratosphere is very useful in kind of evaluating how you determine that strategy for a company going forward.
Yeah, 100%. I constantly go back to the simple analogy is when try to imagine going back to that doctor one, try to imagine your doctor had 24/7 results of whatever's happening within your body. What would that conversation be like? Would that be a proactive conversation like, "Hey, I've noticed when you sleep at night, you're not really getting the good rest sleep. Are you experiencing
Mm.
these types of issues?" and so forth. And IT administrators can take advantage of that as well. So it just in so many ways, information is most important, specifically now to navigate all the different things that are happening within this space. And then, of course, just kind of changing that culture shift also kind of coincides with that as well. So,
Yeah.
James,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah. I really appreciate it, Roberto. Hope everyone enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks very much.